On this week's episode, we are going to talk about breaking down your script for budgeting. Welcome back to Producing with TJ, where we get an in-depth look at the business side of film. So now you have a script. How much is it going to cost to make? What are the things to think about and to consider when you're figuring out the cost? Today, we are going to break down your script and talk about the things to look for when budgeting. So one of the first things that I do when I'm breaking down a script is I like to take a notepad and I like to make a list of all the different factors that I'm actually going to talk about. And then I highlight throughout the script different colors based on that thing. For example, locations. So if I'm going through the script and looking for the different locations, maybe I'll highlight that all in yellow. Now, please take note, the things that I'm going to talk about today really only involve the prep and the shoot costs. This doesn't involve post at all. So here are the basic things to consider when you are going through your script to budget. Now, I will do follow-up videos on the specifics of each of these areas because there is so much to talk about. So the first thing to think about is your crew. There are some roles that are obvious that you have to already fill. Obviously, you'll need a director of photography, probably need sound if you're shooting dialogue, hair and makeup, wardrobe, production designer, key grip, gaffer, etc. Now, as you go through your budget, it will change and your crew will grow. You are going to have a better idea of how many people you're actually going to need to pull this off. So the second thing you're probably going to consider are your talent costs. Are you hiring a casting director? Are they union? What's their buyout? These are all factors that you want to consider, and it will affect other areas. If you have a lot of talent, then you're probably going to need a lot more hair and makeup people, possibly more wardrobe people, possibly more equipment. Also, if it's a celebrity, you'll probably have to have a motorhome, or you'll have to have something in the budget for their writer. These are some of the things that you're going to consider when you're thinking about talent cost. There are so many factors that go into location. How much are the permits? How much is the actual location cost? How many locations are you going to have? Can you shoot multiple things in one location? Are you going to have to do a company move? Are you going to need police? Is it in the zone? These are a lot of questions, and I will go in depth in another video about how detailed you kind of need to be with locations. And location really kind of affects a lot of things. If you have a difficult location, you might have to accommodate with more crew members or more equipment. Location is very important, so I would definitely not skimp on this area. So you're going to consider things like your set dressing, your props. Are you going to have to build things? What are the materials that you're going to need to buy in order to make this thing? Or maybe you can use the existing location and their existing pieces. Are you going to have to hire more set dressers? There's a lot of factors that are involved in this. Usually art department tends to be kind of their own thing, but you do want to have a realistic budget for your art department because they are part of the creative side. And this is the part that the director will get kind of picky on when it comes to cost, because there will be things that they will want. Something's not as pretty as they thought it would be. They might have to redo things. Art department does tend to be a pretty expensive area when it comes to money. So the fifth thing that you are going to want to consider is your equipment. Obviously, you're probably going to need to rent a camera and you'll need the accessories to go with it. Are you going to need a dolly? Are you going to need a slider? Are you going to need a tripod? These are all factors that you have to consider. Sound, DIT, VTR, hard drives, production supplies, I could go on. Equipment lists tend to get very long, and in the production side, we have to collect all of these orders from all the different people, approve the budgets. So these are things that you definitely want to have an idea of how much these things cost. So the sixth thing that you want to consider is food. Now, food may not seem that important, but it actually is. A lot of crew members do talk about the food if the food is not good. Now, obviously, we're in the age of COVID, so catering and crafty isn't exactly what it once was, and they will have to just get used to that. But you do want to do your best to try to get the best caterer if possible, or the best restaurant that caters if possible, depending on your crew size. But you do want to have a decent amount of money for food, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of your crew because you want them to be happy and fed. So the next thing that I would consider is travel. Are you going to have to fly anyone out? Are you going to have to rent any cars? Are you going to have to get a hotel, an Airbnb? Maybe a crew member will need a safety ride home. Maybe a PA will need to take a cab. This is pretty common in New York if they're doing some kind of run. Sometimes we will fly out a producer, director, or production designer. Really kind of depends on the situation. But you do want to consider travel cost. Now, lastly, the last thing you want to consider are special requirements. Now, these are things that aren't always common or that normal when it comes to shooting, but they are factors that you do want to consider. For example, if you have children, you might have to hire a studio teacher. You might have to pay for their work permits, depending on their age. If you have any animals, you're going to have to think about how much the animals cost, how much the handler is. Are you going to have a welfare officer like American Humane show up on your set? You also want to consider things like visual effects, special effects. If you have any pyrotechnics, you might even need special insurance. If you're going to have a drone, you might need special insurance for that as well. Are you going to have police officers, firefighters? There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to these things. These are things that aren't normal, but you do want to think about, especially when you're working on your budget. So lastly, what I would do is once you have the initial list down, I would go back and then look at your crew size again and think about all of these things. If you have a location, for example, that is very difficult to shoot in, you may need more crew to be able to haul all of that equipment in. If you have a lot of talent, you're going to have to consider a lot more hair and makeup assistants. You might need more equipment, more wardrobe racks, things like that. So all of these things are going to help you on your crew size, and you can go back and look at your script again as things get added, and you adjust as you go. So those are the basic budgeting factors that you want to consider when you're breaking down your script. Now remember, things will always come up, so you definitely want to leave a little bit of padding because there will be things that you'll have to buy that you just didn't account for, and that happens pretty much every single time that you're on set. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel where I will be posting new videos every week. I'll see you then.